So do you know that your mind can actually kill you, in quotes? So this series, if you haven't watched part one, please watch the series in order, because we are trying to achieve a foundation in terms of progressing, in terms of how to actually deal with the complexity of what is the mind and everything. So in this part two, we will cover this question of how the mind can actually do this to you, and what does that question actually mean. But I want you to become aware of something. If you look at, or you get into the habit of start observing the mind, you will eventually become so aware to the point that your level of perception is not, or rather the way of your being is not filtered through a cyclical pattern of things that make up what you're calling as the I. And once you become so aware that you can actually see that in your life, not only does your life start to get even better, but the amount of suffering that you experience in life starts to drop at a significant pace, that you start to experience peacefulness, you can experience also blissfulness, and whatever you want to experience. So I'll just give you an example. Say some negative event has to happen around you. Now you have the power, if you learn to master this kind of awareness, which I speak in the part one, that you can choose how you want to experience life. Life is no more dictated, or rather, you are not controlled by the forces, external forces of nature, or you're not controlled by the external power around you. So, in other words, you have the power to choose how you want to be, and no one can take it away from you. And that's the power of it. So, this second part, we're going to look at a few questions. And how do you know when your mind is making too much of noise? So say, for instance, you've been on this journey called the spiritual path for some time. The one way which I have noticed how you can actually find out for yourself as a self-analysis on this journey is by trying to learn something new. So if you try to sit down, and maybe you can sign up for a course, or you can sign up to learn whatever, but it must be something that you can choose that adds value to your life, or something that will progress you in your career or your finance, your business, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's something that you want to grow into, whatever aspect you have an interest where it lies. And when you sit there and you're listening to maybe the video, or you're listening to a lecture or whatnot, are you able to pay attention to what is being said, what is actually trying to be conveyed to you? Are you able to receive that? And I want you to pay attention to this specific part, which I'm about to tell you now. Are you able to maintain that level of attention for more than a minute, or more than 2 minutes, or 5 minutes? Absolute dedicated focus, absolute dedicated attention, unwavering attention. If you're able to do that for at least a minute without, so that means you're sitting there and you are listening and you are receiving what is being spoken about, and you are completely sucked in to what is being offered to you for 1 minute without a single thought in your head. If you are able to maintain that level of discipline, or eventually get to that there, then you sort of know that your mind is not making as much noise as most people's mind. There's something called a global mind, where this collective consciousness, if you want to call it, this collective pattern, collective programming, that's a little bit of a better word, the collective programming. You sort of have distanced yourself away from that. The collective programming is not in its full control over you anymore. And that will signify to you, you have achieved a certain level of mastery of the mind, which is one of the biggest obstacles in one's spiritual journey of experiencing what you are. You see, we live our whole life with an identity, and we live in a certain image of what we are, and we hold that image very tightly. And the mind sort of ensures, because it's sort of on autopilot for most people, that that identity is sort of protected and it's kept alive. And it will do everything in its power, if you want to look at the mind, because the mind is always seen as an entity, but that's just for explanation purposes, that the mind is always trying to maintain this image. You want to call it the global mind. It's trying to maintain this identity, because if it loses this identity, it's nothing. It has lost its power over you, because you are not that collective mind. You are not that collective programming. So when you're able to clearly see that you are not the thoughts, you are not the mind, something happens as a consequence. Now, this is not something that you should make a goal, because the moment you make a goal of trying to experience what I'm about to tell you, then the paradox is it will never happen. It's only when you drop the pursuit of what I'm about to tell you. If you don't, it's best that I don't speak of it, but I'll just say this just so that it's sort of something, some information that can help some people and may help other people. I don't think it really would make that much of a difference, but when you are able to clearly see that the thoughts, the mind, everything that is not You, as a consequence or as a byproduct of practicing this kind of awareness, what in some cultures they call as the soul, if you want to call it a soul, you want to call it essence, or you want to call it being, there's so many different words that is used to describe what you are. Some people call it enlightenment and all this nonsense. So I want you to just throw all that vocabulary out. Throw all of those stuff out, right? It means nothing to you. These are all words that people who cannot describe what they are have tried to describe what they are by using vocabulary. It's not possible. So in that sense, it's okay for me to speak to that extent. And when I say this, it may create an image of, oh, this is what will happen, or this is what I think will happen if I do this. And that happens in the background, the mind's projected content that's happening there. That thought process will be present. If it's not present in your conscious mind, it will be present in the subconscious layer. And that which describes what you are will never be that, because there is no words to describe that. You see, there's everyone who has experienced it. They themselves know that whatever they say, whatever they speak, it's kind of a futile thing. So this is if you want to find out what is this whole purpose of being here, kind of a question. Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? And is there anything after this? If you want to find out the truth about life, because either one, a person understands that they're going to die, that's the quickest way to get there, or to bring the necessary awareness of going through the entire life process of getting everything that you want and realizing that this is not bringing me happiness. So or rather, I have everything now. Like, what is there after this? Like, to come to that state, there's two ways to come to that state. You can go through life and achieve everything, or you can bring the necessary wisdom towards yourself and bring the necessary awareness that you're a mortal being here on this planet that will eventually die one day. It can happen tomorrow, it can happen the next second, it can happen the next minute, nobody knows. But that awareness of mortality, that mortal nature which is there in every human being, that itself is sufficient to bring you onto the same level so that you don't have to spend an entire lifetime trying to accumulate all different types of material success and then realize it's kind of futile because anyway you're still going to die. One may have the argument of, okay, they might as well live comfortably and then die, but when you are brought to the last moment of your death, it doesn't make a difference. And if you haven't realized that as yet, you will find out that when you are on your deathbed. So, how to get out of your mind? Like I said, the awareness, conscious awareness, being present in the moment. Now, how does one become present in the moment? You can bring your sense of attention to your physical body. That's the quickest way. You can bring your attention to your breath. That's all the time it's happening. Bring your attention to what is happening in the moment. So let's just say, for instance, you are working on a project at work and you are thinking about the football game that's going to be happening in maybe 8 p.m. and stuff. That is your mind focused on a future event, not on the present now that is happening, where you are engaging with people. Now, some may say, okay, they're engaging with people talking about football, but I want you to sort of learn to bring that attention towards listening more than actually speaking. Because when you listen to what somebody's saying, not listening to something or trying to focus on some future event, but focus on now, because only now exists. Bringing the attention to this moment, here and now. So this moment that I am recording this video and the moment that you are watching this video is exactly the same moment. There's no difference. Time is just sort of it's a mind created, or can say a tool that is used for survival purposes and communication purposes to navigate through this world and stuff. But time really doesn't exist in the sense that we think that time exists, so the general population that thinks time exists. So we can all have different experiences of time. Like, if we're having a good day, time is going really fast. If we're having a bad day, time is taking forever. So you can alter, basically, but the point of me saying this is you can alter the time experience that you are having in your life. If you become more conscious and aware, you can choose of how long you want to experience something for. That sort of mastery comes to you because you now, if you want to experience time moving really fast, you can consciously choose to be in a more joyful state by will. If you want to experience time moving really slow, you can bring yourself to the present moment, or you can consciously choose to experience a what is called negative by choice moment where time feels like it's dragging on forever. You have that much choice, but you have to, once you get mastery of the self and the mind, then it becomes an outcome of this. So the mind can destroy you, or it can rather kill you. If you don't become conscious, so say for instance, you're watching this video up to this point and you choose not to absorb what is being said, or you choose not to move in a direction where you can learn to become more conscious and aware of this. Life will throw a lot of challenges your way, and suffering, the amount of suffering that you experience will drastically increase. And it's designed like this so that it pushes you towards consciousness and becoming more aware. And it can push you to a state where one decides to take their own life because of this. And this is because the mind has sort of taken control of the individual. The mind is sort of like a computer virus, a destructive computer virus that's willing to destroy the whole host itself. And it's not like more of like a virus in IT terms. It's more of like a worm, computer worm. It doesn't need your interaction. It can just take off by itself. That's how it seems to be in one's experience. But it can also be triggered, so it can also be looked at as a virus as well, depending on what information you are giving it. So if you don't become conscious and aware, you will be put into certain situations where you have to be forced to become conscious and aware, which is even more worse. So it's best that one starts practicing becoming more aware, because that will not only, there's no downside to becoming more aware. There's no downsides to becoming more aware of things. It's just that maybe the intensity of life will increase, but life generally tends to get better. The downside of not becoming aware is moving towards a direction that is unconscious and very destructive in nature, not to only yourself, but all life around